Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to react to something new. This video is called What Do Canadians Think of Americans? So living in America and watching American TV shows, you always hear that the most common conception about Canadians is that they are nice people. Even if you slap them, they're gonna say sorry, I hope your hand didn't get hurt. So let's see, what do Canadians think of Americans?
It's Monday afternoon on the remarkably multicultural campus of Ryerson University in downtown Toronto. A lot of these students are new immigrants or second generation. Others belong to the big city's dwindling white population. But their bond is their Canadianism, a shared patriotic cockiness bordering on smug, if polling data is to be believed. Even the newest arrivals seem to have internalized that to be Canadian is to somehow live on a higher moral plane, especially with regard to certain others.
We can think about national identity as having
Those others are the subject of Tracy Rainey's Canadian Studies class today.
We need to build up a national identity. On average, Canadians are more likely to say that they would rather be a citizen of Canada than any other country, that the world would be a better place if more citizens were like Canadians were, that we are, in some respects, superior to Americans.
Really? So, what do they say? If you think your culture is better than other cultures, I didn't expect that, to be honest.
To her students, though, in some respects, barely begins to express it. Rainey tests the question.
Generally speaking, Canada is better than the United States. Could we see a show of hands who would agree with that? Okay. Versus a show of hands, keep your
Wow.
hands up in the air. Okay, so generally speaking, Canada is a better country than the United States. Keep your hands up in the air. And then let me change the question and go back. Generally speaking, Canada is a better country than most countries. Okay.
Oh, okay. Then I take back my recent attachment. They don't think that their culture is better than any culture. They just do think that most of them, or at least most of them, think that their culture is better than American culture, which I live in America for 3 years now. I've seen some parts of American culture. Let's just say I'm still yet to see what is Canadian culture.
So there's something particularly about the United States.
Indeed, there is, where these young people are concerned. Listen to some of these opinions.
Keep it short. Like, give me a couple of words.
Americans are pompous.
I think they're ignorant. I think Americans are addicted to war.
Discriminatory.
I live in America, guys.
Just about no one had a positive word.
They're like frenemies. They're friends and enemies at the same time.
She said something about Americans are ignorant. I'm not gonna say all Americans, but Gen Z is ignorant. I've seen so many videos on YouTube about people interviewing like Americans, Gen Z Americans, about simple basic life questions, and they don't know. Even sometimes it's about American history, and don't get me started on American geography.
Same time.
Pushy. Pushy.
They are a little bit power hungry.
Arrogant is the first word that comes to mind when I think of Americans.
Of course, it's nothing new that Canadians describe themselves first and foremost as not Americans. But as Canadian self-confidence grows, and pollsters say it is most definitely growing, the old knee-jerk anti-Americanism, the resentment born principally of Canadian insecurity, seems to have morphed into something else. A supercilious conviction of moral superiority. Just
Oh my god. So is there something like between US and Canada? Is there something going on? Because for the longest I thought it was United States against the British. I didn't know about US versus Canada. Oh man.
Just read the online postings at the end of columns about America in Canadian news websites. A few recent excerpts from the CBC site. American politicians preaching complete gobbledygook under the guise of nauseating American patriotism and belief in God is pathetic. That drew 273 thumbs up approvals from readers. Or, the United States is the most backward country in the developed world, 240 thumbs up. Or, the collective citizens of the US are as dumb as bricks, and so on.
Should I take back my answer that says that Canadians are nice? Or maybe just because this was directed towards Americans. Let's continue.
Pollster Michael Adams has studied such attitudes in depth.
Well, 5 years ago, Neil, I would have said we would feel morally superior. We're the kinder, gentler society. We're multicultural. We have health care.
Wait, he said something about healthcare. Is healthcare free in Canada? Don't make me wanna move to Canada, man.
But now, says Adams, it's something more. Canada's celebration of Olympic victories over Americans verged on jingoism. And the mission in Afghanistan, says Adams, has Canadians feeling they are pound for pound better war fighters than the Americans, too. Oh, and unlike them, we can mock ourselves.
We're confident enough to make fun of ourselves. And in that sense, we feel superior because we then are even more ironic. It's like being the smart kid who feels smarter than her little brother who doesn't get it. But we feel like the smart older sister who gets it.
Talking to America. Nothing distills that notion like Rick Mercer's famous Talking to Americans skits. Essentially, Mercer exploits the American eagerness to engage with strangers, no matter how silly the topic.
I had no idea that Canada's on a 20-hour clock. But it's actually the same amount of time, but just our minutes are longer.
Okay.
By American standards.
Well, I think it should be switched.
Yeah.
Canada, please move to the 24-hour clock.
Hi, I'm Governor Tom Vilsack from Iowa. Canada, congratulations on your new 24-hour clock.
There are differences of perspective.
What's going on? Didn't Canada use a 24-hour clock time?
Gordon Giffen has heard it all. When he was the American ambassador to Canada and traveled the country from one end to the other, one theme stood out.
As a country, as a people, Canadians were more generous, more thoughtful, more caring, more courteous, and more global in their perspective than Americans. And then usually they'd conclude by telling me that Canadians were also more modest than Americans.
This speaks volumes when you have an American who has been to Canada, who have lived with Canadians, and Americans says that Canadians are more generous, more thoughtful, more caring. But the caveat is, if you're all of that, be humble. Let me say you're generous and good. Don't show me love and kindness and be generous to me and then tell me, you see, I am generous. Are you boasting? Are you boastful? Are you doing it for people to say, yeah, you are nice and generous?
And I found a little irony in that, but
they did.
Not particularly.
Giffen also heard a lot of this.
I think of them as selfish just because they don't take the same time that we do to learn about them as they do us.
As I traveled.
Oh my God. American geography. I heard people answering like they were asked, give me 3 questions outside of Mexico, US, and Canada. Some people named Europe, Africa, Asia as a country. And all of this, I think, is because they don't teach as much geography and history about other countries and cultures to Americans in high school than they should have, because otherwise they don't have any knowledge that is outside of the American history or geography and things like that.
Canada, I'd get a lot of people who would say, well, we know everything about you, you know nothing about us. And I'd say, well, tell me everything you know about Kansas. And people's eyes would glaze over, or, Nebraska or Arkansas.
Here's a few other things Canadians don't know about Americans. They give more to charity than any other nation and far more per capita than Canadians do. Americans work harder and more productively than Canadians. They send more aid abroad, even on a per capita basis, than anyone else. And where Canadians are concerned, while Americans might not have studied the nation to their north, they seldom have a mean word to say.
In our darkest hours, Canada has been with us.
NBC's Tom Brokaw broadcast an essay about Canada during the Olympics.
Jesse Despoint. Canadians are so generous, they share with us their brightest stars in music, comedy, acting, sports, and journalism.
And here was the result when we took a paper and pen down to DuPont Circle here in BC. We simply asked people to write down one word about Canada.
Polite or peaceful. Friendly.
Neil McDonald, CBC News, Washington.
Yeah, that was, you see, like Americans, because I live in America, like this is what I hear about Canadians. They're polite, they're nice, peaceful, sometimes too polite. But yeah, I didn't know like Canadians thought about Americans such as egoistic, full of themselves, which Americans can be. But if you live with them enough, you know the culture. Like this is the culture. Alright guys, if there's more videos about this or something, some videos like this that you want me to watch, please put them down below. And also, I barely know anything about Canada, so put some videos about Canada down in the comments, please. Until next time, I hope you enjoy the video.